This episode of the Demonic Compendium contains spoilers for the following games. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to an equestrian new episode of the Demonic Compendium, the show where I discuss the mythology, design, and game history of your favorite Megami Tensei demons. It's officially the year of the horse, and I've enjoyed covering demons related to the Zodiac these past few years. It was also recently Valentine's Day, so I picked out one that was, well, horny. So get your mind out of the gutter and put your hooves together, because today we're talking about unicorn. Unicorns are one of the most well-known mythical creatures out there. It's a beautiful, majestic horse with a horn. The name stems from the Latin words unus and cornu, which roughly translate as single horn of an animal. Obviously, we know the prefix uni from words like uniform and unicycle, but the corn part also applies to words like corner to indicate that sharp point. I'm pretty sure I explained this back when I did my video on bicorn, but cut me some slack. That was over 100 episodes and nearly 9 years ago. But where did unicorns actually come from? Well, it's hard to pinpoint down an exact first instance of them existing because it's not an idea that sprang up all at once. Perhaps the earliest unicorns were actually cave paintings of animals like goats or antelopes, but drawn from the side in a way that made them appear to only have one horn. These paintings may serve to explain why some artistic depictions of unicorns throughout history give them non-horse-like features, such as billy goat beards, lion-like tails, and cloven hooves, such as in the famous unicorn tapestries from the 1490s to early 1500s, including the unicorn in captivity, which is one of my favorite pieces. These pieces, along with many others, helped cement the idea of unicorns being drawn to women, and they were often seen as symbols of purity and virtue and not having sex. However, much of what we know about unicorns we owe to Greek physician Cyzius, who wrote about wondrous discoveries in India in his book Indica. It's worth mentioning that this man never actually set foot in India and just wrote about what people told him. I also want to ask that we all be mature about this as I read quotes from his translated work, because he was very clearly talking about donkeys. A few noteworthy blurbs from it include, "In India there are wild asses as large as horses or even larger. Their body is white, their head dark red, their eyes bluish, and they have a horn in their forehead about a cubit in length. Those who drink out of cups made from it are proof against convulsions, epilepsy, and even poison, provided that before or after having taken it, they drink some wine or water or other liquid out of these cups. These animals are very strong and swift, neither the horse nor any other animal can overtake them. At first they run slowly, but the longer they run, their pace increases wonderfully, and becomes faster and faster." Scholars would later take Cyzius' notes into consideration and believed that he came to most of these conclusions after being told about animals like Indian rhinos and chirus. Stories of unicorns and other similar myths eventually started spreading around, but usually stemming from some similar source of being based on real-world animals. For example, unicorns appear in the Bible, specifically the King James Version, with a few different passages, but to quote Deuteronomy 33:17, "His glory is like the firstling of his bullock, and his horns are like the horns of unicorns. With them he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth." The animal in question was not literally a unicorn, but a mistranslation of reem, which typically referred to a specific type of ox or antelope. Unicorns would also make their way into Greek mythology. While the unicorn horn as a separate unit is typically called an alicorn, this term was also used to describe a specific type of unicorn, particularly a horned pegasus rather than a horned horse. Alicorns became popular in trade and would be sold as trinkets, ground down into medicinal powders, and other sketchy means. Of course, since unicorns are super duper really hard to catch, these alicorns were generally just narwhal teeth, since their long spiral tooth resembled the famous horse horn. Despite usually being depicted as loving, gentle, majestic creatures, the first actual written use of the word unicorn comes from a 13th century manuscript called the Encrine Weiss, where the writer correlated specific animals to the 7 deadly sins of Christianity, like a lion representing pride, a bear representing sloth, and the unicorn representing wrath, which may explain why it always looks so pissed off in Megaten games. Unicorn's Compendium entry from Persona 5 Strikers refers to it as a legendary white horse with a single spiral horn. It can only be tamed by a pure maiden, and its horn supposedly has miraculous healing capabilities. Hey, real quick, if you like what I'm doing, please consider commenting, subscribing, maybe even checking out the Patreon. It honestly does all help a lot. Thank you so much. Moving on. Design-wise, it's a unicorn. What do you think it looks like? Unsurprisingly, in most depictions, it's a white horse with a spiral horn. While some minor details may vary from series to series, like the earliest Megami Tensei art having a golden mane or a purple one in the Demi-Kids franchise, it is pretty consistently a white horse with a spiral horn and red eyes. I will confess that I personally prefer when unicorn designs have the little beard and non-horse-like tails, because I think that helps differentiate them from just normal horses. However, Kaneko's design does feature slightly cloved hooves, which horses do not have, and the clove itself only made its way into the model in newer gen titles, with it seemingly not appearing, or at least being way less visible back in the PS2 era. And then, of course, I can't ignore that in Last Bibles 1 and 3, Unicorn was just a weird, magic, hippo-rhino thing, likely in a direct reference to the ancient beliefs that unicorn myths in general may have stemmed from rhinos. As far as game history goes, while Unicorn is a fairly consistent figure in the franchise, its actual important roles seem to be fewer and further between, and when it does appear, it's rarely in a major plot-related capacity. Despite their connection in mythology and even basically sharing a model, Unicorn and Bicorn never really interact with each other, not having a unique conversation in Nocturne or Shin Megami Tensei 5. Or perhaps I should clarify and say Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance, where Unicorn was amongst the handful of demons added to the enhanced version that wasn't in the original game. Unicorn does briefly appear in the Vengeance quest, Pixie on the Case, where Unicorn's testimony helps provide invaluable clues to help Pixie and the Nahobino figure out which demon stole the tasty treat. In the first Digital Devil Saga, Ushas, the avatar form of Jinana, will summon unicorn minions to help her out during her boss fight. If she has two unicorns beside her, they will use a powerful light-based combo spell called Seraph Lore. Soul Hackers 2 has a special Ion directive, Target Unicorn, where Ringo has to hunt down a unicorn in Arrow's Soul Matrix. The unique gimmick of this boss fight is that the unicorns are immune to everything except almighty attacks and will revive each other at full HP, so you have to take them both down on the same turn. While I completely forgot about that part when I went to record footage, luckily for me, I had both Ringo and Melody able to do piercing physical damage to them to finish off the fight. In Tokyo Mirage Session Sharp FE, Itsuki has a weapon called the Noble Rapier that very clearly resembles a unicorn's horn. A much more obvious reference is that Tsubasa has a spear called the Alicorn, where the handle of it is the spiral horn, and the weapon design even has ornamental wings, making it one of the few direct references to the idea of an Alicorn being a horned Pegasus, further connecting to her role as a Pegasus Knight. Also, I'm just going to mention this because where else am I ever going to get to say it? Tsubasa won both the 2026 Choose Your Legends Cup and the Shadow Cup in Fire Emblem Heroes. So heck yeah, we're going to be getting 2 new Tsubasa units in the game this year, and I'm psyched. And speaking of the Alicorn, in the earlier Persona 3 games, Unicorn could create the Alicorn accessory as a heart item, which negated poison damage in a direct reference to the myth of their horns having healing capabilities. In Persona 3 Reload, you could just buy the Alicorn accessory from the antique shop thanks to Reload's dumb, stupid, so very, very dumb crafting system. And I feel like I've been bringing this up a lot in recent episodes, but let's just establish it anyway. Unicorn was, in Persona 4, so presumably it will still be in Persona 4 Revival whenever that ends up coming out. I mean, I just can't think of any reason why it wouldn't be, Unicorn has some fairly interesting appearances in Persona 5, where its shadow self was known as Expressionless Beast. In the original game, it was a member of the Hierophant Arcana and would create the Samarikarm skill card. However, in Persona 5 Royal, it was changed to be a member of the Faith Arcana associated with Sumire Yoshizawa, where it would create the Mahama skill card, or Hama-on, if an alarm is in effect. One of the very last Mementos missions in the entire game is called An Idol and a Unicorn, where the shadow of Anjifua transforms into, well, unsurprisingly, a unicorn, possibly in reference to him being tamed by what he views as a pure-hearted maiden in the form of his favorite idol. After defeating him, you actually have to get through a successful negotiation with him, where you convince him to spend more time with his family and talk to his kid. I do like the message here that this quest isn't about convincing him to just completely give up being a fan of the idol he likes, but understanding that moderation and even sharing his interest with his family is important. I really do wish more of the Mementos missions had these conversation puzzles at the end, or other distinct gameplay mechanics to help them stand out. Unicorn also plays a small role in the Prison Mail Part 5 request in Persona 5 Strikers, where Lavenza requests a unicorn with Zionga. And when you bring it to her, she's just kinda like, yep, thanks, you did it. Compared to Elizabeth and Margaret, Lavenza rarely has any fun or distinct dialogue related to the specific persona you fuse, which I always thought was kind of a shame. While not specifically game-related, Unicorn has appeared in some recent Atlas-related media, such as being the focal point of this year's official Chinese New Year card from the company, which I swear isn't why I picked Unicorn, but somehow that just seems to work out for these episodes more often than not. And there was also a slightly bizarre but fairly wholesome post from the official Atlas West Twitter account that was just a video of Unicorn reminding us, everything will be alright, SMT boy. And you know what? I think that's a message a lot of us can benefit from right now. And there you have it, Unicorn, the holy horned horse hoofing it to its hallowed home. Did I leave out something you thought was important? Was I just plain wrong about something? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to let me know who you'd like to see me talk about in future episodes. That's going to do it for this episode of the Demonic Compendium, and I will see you next time. But be careful while you rest that a demon doesn't take over your body.